Do you still have confidence in DeMeco Ryans, in CJ Stroud? And is it possible for those two to earn your trust by the end of the year, if they ever had it? What's DeMeco Ryans' ceiling as an NFL head coach? We'll compare him to some similar coaches across the league. And we've also got to talk about the FBI bust for sports gambling today. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast. Hit it!
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people are.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to see.
You kidding me? Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Oi! Welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025, live on YouTube at Paul Gallant. Like, subscribe if you haven't already. Twitch at Gallant Says. You could give me a sub, but I just appreciate a follow. On X and Twitter at Gallant Says Pod. That's where I sometimes write out my takes too. Instagram at Sports Gallant, TikTok at Gallant Says. Follow me on both. And feed your screen addiction. Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports if you from time to time like to go on that hellscape of an app and go past your uncle and aunt spouting out just the shittiest political takes. Because you'll occasionally see me. I only go on it for birthdays, but I do post to this app. You can join the show Monday through Friday around noon Central Time, and occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's available after the fact, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you ever want to cut me off mid-thought, the best way to watch this show is on YouTube. Like, subscribe. Super chat me, baby. I'll play this. But I will eventually get to your comments, which you can also leave the old-fashioned way, gallantsays@gmail.com, or by giving me a phone call. Leave a voicemail the old-fashioned way, 281-836-3912. That's how you call. That's how you text. So there wasn't a show yesterday. Greg Todd's asking, Paul, you didn't get arrested for gambling yesterday? Haha. No. Yesterday, I was back on SportsRadio 610 for the first time in, if my math is correct, carries a 2, factoring the minutes, the times, etc., etc., etc. It had been 2,300 and still doing the math here. Probably not making any noise. Yes, 2,331 days. I think a little bit less than 2,332 since I was last on the station that gave me my first job. To announce that, I don't know if you guys saw that, but I put way too much effort into a little trailer for my return. So in case you have not seen it, I posted this bullshit to try to get people excited about me going back on 610.
Ground ball, second base. They've done it! Oh my! Let's play the music!
Sometimes you gotta go back
To the Gallant at Night listening audience.
to actually move forward.
Oh, Bob! Let's go!
I don't mean going back to reminisce or chase ghosts. I mean going back to see where you came from. Where you been, how you got here. See where you're going.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
I know there are those that say you can't go back.
You got fucking grow, motherfucker. You kidding me?
Yes, you can.
Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Just have to live in the right place.
Shout out to that Matthew McConaughey Lincoln ad, which could be a sponsor of the Gallant Says podcast. Investors? Advertisers? Possibly you. So I went on the show yesterday in the Loop, subbing for John Lopez, my old TV show co-host of about 6 years back at Cube 57. We did a show called Sports Zone Unfiltered. It's pretty crazy. I live... What the heck happened here? Stupid. God damn it. Fuck this chair. Paul, God, you're such an unprofessional operation. That's why you come here. So we did that show, which is basically right across the street, the old Cube 57 studios, for 6 years. He was out, but he, along with a couple of other people that were at 610 back in the day, Sean Pendergast, among others, I guess when I got let go, pitched me as a fill-in, a substitute at 610. And since Lopez was getting a root canal done yesterday, I got to sub in. So I got to hang with Reggie Atatula, with Figgy Fig, who would sub as a producer when I was doing Gallant at Night back in the day. And being back at the station was like getting back on a bicycle. Things were a little bit different as far as the way that the walls are decorated, but that was pretty much it. I went into studio. I saw some of the people that I used to chat with in the hallways from Mega. I got to actually do about, let's say, like 5 minutes of radio with Sean Pendergast, who I, for a year, did the Texans post-game show with Seth Payne, who I hosted a show in the mornings with for a year as well. And I think if you had listened to me in the past at Sports Radio 610, you would have 100% recognized that I have not changed a whole lot since leaving the station. Here's a clip from that yesterday.
I asked ChatGPT who are the phoniest athletes. They gave me 3 names. You're not going to like one of them, Paul. I can tell you right now. But number 1 is Marion Jones, the sprinter, because she got busted for PEDs.
Okay.
Number 2 is Ryan Lochte, the swimmer. These are people who literally lied about things, as is the third one, Tom Brady.
Oh, my God. Blasphemy.
Yeah!
Blasphemy.
Hey, Reggie, I'm giving you the best version of Paul right now.
I'm not even going to go on the air today. No, I'm out. This is hostile environment. How dare you?
It's ChatGPT. It's not me.
I'm going to call HR right now. You guys are not respecting my religion.
Is your paperwork even done yet?
Throw a chair.
I've done that before.
Actually, Paul, Sean and I talked about that beforehand. It was like I said I want to make a joke about Paul throwing a chair, but I don't want to also. I don't. If he doesn't take it the right way, I don't want to ruin his whole next 4 hours.
I mean, because with me, I get mad for a minute and then I forget about it. Like just completely turn back into a golden retriever.
Yeah, white hot rage and then it's gone.
It's gone. I mean, so there was a chair throwing incident. There was a time I threw a mouse at the trash can because my computer wasn't working.
I was about to say live mouse.
And and it hit the window and it cracked the window. And that was coming out of
These are not easy windows to crack.
They are not. And that came out of my Christmas time paycheck.
I felt bad for you.
That was
in
not
that
fun.
Moment. That was because
no one got gifts.
It wasn't like a violent outburst or something. You got mad and threw something like like we all do.
That's what does.
I don't know, you and I do at times. And unfortunately the window got in the way. Nobody told the window to stand there.
I would have. You didn't break it. You kind of like you didn't shatter it.
No, there was just a crack.
It's a crack.
It was a big crack, though. And all of those are true stories. The time that I knocked over the chair, I thought no one saw that. And I heard about it a couple of days later. I didn't get in any trouble for that. But yeah, I threw it down on the ground because the tech wasn't working. Something I've found over time is that whenever technology fails me, I can't handle it. I lose my shit completely. So in that moment, and in the moment where my mouse wasn't working and I threw it towards the trash and it hit the window, I'll let things get away from me. Something I've been working on throughout my life. Anger management. I'm way better at it than I used to be, believe it or not. As you could see right there with the headphone caught in my chair wheel, I was very deftly and calmly able to navigate moving the cord, which somehow is, again, stuck underneath my chair. I don't know what it is about wires finding a way to get stuck underneath things, but it sure as shit does it a whole lot. But it was good to be back. He even had a good crosstalk with Clint, who's still calling me my nickname, Paulie Kittens. And first time that I've been in the same room doing radio with Ron, we were talking about hair. And I confessed to everybody that I use Propecia. Take the pill. I had a super bad receding hairline when I was in Seattle. It was really, really bad. And I went back to Houston in the middle of the pandemic. I had not had my hair cut in probably 7 months. So it was as shaggy can be. And my hairstylist, I call them hairstylists. You should invest in your hairstylist if you do have a good head of hair, which I'm very lucky, very blessed to have. Annie, though, my hairstylist, pointed out to me, Paul, what's happening? What's going on? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And she pointed at my hairline. And I realized, oh, shit, this isn't very good. And in case you want to see it, I'll show you how bad it was. This is what it looks like. What it looked like. This is a picture I took on October 15th of 2020. You ready for this, guys? This is bad. I mean, yikes. That is not good. Anyway, I show that to tell you that if you think your hair's starting to go, you have the means to save it. And we had a conversation where I think the idea of it not being natural was called out. But no, it's a natural process that involves drugs. Or do the hair transplant thing. If you have the means, fuck it. Save your hair. Investors, advertisers, possibly you. But it was great to be back on 610. Hopefully it'll happen more. I have signed a lot of paperwork that does make me believe that it'll be a more than one-time occurrence. I am very appreciative of anyone who has been supporting me on the Gallant Says podcast venture, or if you listen to me back in the day, for joining me on the show, people who were listening to me back when I was at ESPN Houston. I specifically want to point out the Twitch audience, which is perhaps my most loyal, even though they are sometimes toxic. I do love you guys dearly. I'm sorry I did not sign in to the Twitch until late. I signed into what I thought was Sports Radio 610, and I was like, why is there nobody here? And then I realized that I guess Sports Radio 610's Twitch is 610 Houston or something. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it was a whole lot of fun to be back on where it all began. And I really like everybody in that building. So hopefully it'll happen some more. Anyway, all right, let's talk about the Houston Texans. It is really, really hard to have confidence in the Houston Texans right now. Brandy Monroe commented, "You're acting like they are 0-7. Well, relative to expectations, it sure feels that way. How could you have confidence in this team when you know that they have one of the best defenses in the NFL? Did anyone see that graphic of points allowed this season? And the Texans have allowed 88 to this point, which is by far the fewest. And sure, they had an early bye week, but if you average out what they've allowed thus far this year, we're still talking about, by a pretty clear margin, the best defense in the league. And yet, even with that great defense, even after a 4-takeaway game, we're talking about a loss because the offense can't get anything done. And it's everybody that's to blame. It's CJ Stroud. It's the wide receivers. Hell, even Nico Collins, who had that drop wide open over the middle. He's concussed now. We'll see if he's out there. Christian Kirk's hurt. A lot of pressure on Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, the rookie receivers, to step up. Dalton Schultz at least had some moments in the game. But the offensive line, no one likes it. Nick Caley, the offensive coordinator, no one likes him. Where do you have confidence in this offense? How can you have confidence in CJ Stroud to rise above it, to overcome it? And how can you feel good about DeMeco Ryans as head coach of this team long term, given what you've heard from him over the last couple of days? And we'll play more clips from yesterday's press conference. I'm not quite at the point of, for anyone who has seen Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, I'm not quite where Queen Amidala is setting things in motion for old Palpy to become emperor by delivering a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum.
If this body is not capable of action, I suggest new leadership is needed. I move for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum's leadership.
I'm not quite there with DeMeco. But every time I hear him talk, it makes me feel like they don't know what's wrong. They don't maybe even have a clue as far as what's wrong, unless DeMeco just realizes, yeah, this roster isn't good enough and I need somebody other than Nick Caserio to give me guys that I want. Coaches, assistants that I want. I know a lot of people are waiting eagerly for the day Mike McDaniel gets got, given that DeMeco and Mike McDaniel have some ties going back to San Francisco. I'm not quite at vote of no confidence in CJ or in DeMeco, but as far as them turning things around before the end of the year and having me feeling like I did at the end of their first year together, like Julie, I want to be there, but I don't see myself being back there by the end of the year. I just don't see how it happens. L Jr. 187 asks, how do you find something to talk about every week about the Texans? It's a great question. Because basically, we could do a segment about the Texans every single day saying, it's bad, and then just move on. On Instagram at SportsGallant, Gasper Edwards says, Nick Caserio needs to go. Replacing people in the front office is a hard thing to do. He's been awful when it comes to offensive line evaluations, but are we already completely out on Caserio given some of the things that they've done in the draft? And sure, okay, maybe it was easy to draft CJ Stroud and to draft Will Anderson and to draft Eric Stingley and to draft Nico Collins and to draft Kamari Lassiter and to draft Kalen Bullock and to draft Dameon Pierce, who was good at the very least at first, and some of the other guys. Like, maybe it's easy to find all of those guys, and he certainly has found good players. But are you already out on him because he hasn't been able to fix an offensive line that might be also a unit that struggles because CJ Stroud doesn't see guys when they're open as quickly as we need to see him hit guys when they're open? He missed Jaden Higgins open a couple of times in this game. He also tends to bail out, perhaps a result of batterment at the hands of a bad offensive line. He constantly runs backwards and bails out and shit. I mean, the offensive line that we're seeing in front of him might not be as bad as we think it is, because CJ Stroud could be the reason that they struggle to protect. Maybe not making the right reads at the line of scrimmage with all these new responsibilities that he now has. But obviously the offensive line stinks. I mean, DeMeco Ryans said earlier this week that they're better off if they're swapping back and forth between Laken Tomlinson and Juice Scruggs. How the fuck does that make any sense? How? I'm not sure. I want to have confidence in this regime. DeMeco Ryans played for this team. The defense is great. But I'm wondering about his ceiling. And I have close to zero confidence that things are going to turn around the rest of the way, just given the way the Texans' schedule looks, the great start that the Colts are off to, the logjam in the AFC of teams with decent records. There's a lot of teams with bad records too, but you're not playing any of those teams. It's tough. Help me find that confidence if you can. Let's read some comments on the YouTube side of things. Do-do-do-do-wop. Shibble-a-dee-dee-doo-doo-doo-doo-wop. La-la-la-la-la. Ah! God, I'm such a great singer. Big Ball Squad 2021 asks, Paul, would you ever do a collab with Banging the Can from YouTube? Oh, if Ross invited me to do anything, they're in a heartbeat. Ross is one of the guests I want to have on the show next. Because to this point, we've had two. We had Chandler Rome. We had Vanessa Richardson. There was a podcast that didn't air live that we did yesterday, if you want to check that one out, where Vanessa and I chopped it up. My old Vag radio partner, Vanessa and Gallant. Get your mind out of the gutter. We previewed the remaining 81 games for the Houston Rockets and talked about her impressions of some of the changes that took place over the offseason. But I would love to have Ross on, and I mean, I would be honored if Ross invited me, but I don't want to ask for an invite, you know? I got to bring him on first, and then maybe he'd have me on at some point in the future. What other comments do we have? Big DQ says, I'm not giving up on CJ Stroud, but the offensive line is horrible. Yeah, man, it's bad. Kenny asks if I think the line can be fixed this season. No, I do not. Not by the end of the year. Definitely not. 1021 Keyblaw says on Instagram, you're not so bad on here now that you can curse. Thanks. What else do we have? Comment-wise. Junior Bronco says that Joe Flacco, Sam Darnold, and Aaron Rodgers would have 5 wins with this defense. Agree on Darnold and Rodgers. Let's see another game for Flacco. Let's see another game for Flacco. Greg Todd says, fail, Paul. Gambling story number 1. Listen, I got to cater to my audience first. And I think people care more about what I have to say about Houston sports than they care about what I have to say about gambling. We will talk about the FBI bust a little bit later in the show. But, I mean, you see the thumbnail up here. I'm trying to attract people in by talking about things that I do know like the back of my hand. Eventually, we will talk about all that shit. Getting to know all about you. I have Sound of Music stuck in my head now. Ghost Lyringer says, I want Kevin Stefanski. Big Ball Squad says Mike McDaniel. SSJ4 Drew says, if both are available at the end of the year, would you rather have Stefanski or McDaniels? Definitely Stefanski. I think with McDaniel, is it McDaniels? All of a sudden I'm getting it confused. I think McDaniel needs a year away from football. He seems so burnt out. And look, the Dolphins are just a god-awful organization. Stephen Ross is a fucking idiot. So is Woody Johnson, owner of the Jets. They're just complete fucking morons. Must be nice. Must be nice to stumble into an NFL organization and continue year in, year out to have a god-awful product and continue to make profit after every single year because you basically bought real estate, which is what NFL teams really are. SSJ4 Drew says Nick Caserio does not need to go. Logan Mason says, yay, Paul's back on 610. It is cool to be back on 610. It is very cool. Junior Bronco says, get Nick right on. I have asked Nick to come on before. I have. We talk every now and then, but basically he'll respond to me when I say happy birthday. So, you know, that's how it be. It do be like that. Junior Bronco suggests Gerard Johnson a chance or give Gerard Johnson a run. What does that mean? Like, kick him out? I do think that if you want to go back to last year, it seems like some of the communication issues that seem to be just throughout the Texans organization, it seems like last year there might have been such a divide between DeMeco Ryans and the offense, and as far as he wasn't as on top of them as he probably needs to be. He's a head coach. He's got to be a CEO. You can't just focus on one side of the ball. But from what I heard, I think DeMeco might have been a little disappointed that Gerard Johnson did not make him aware of how the team felt about Chris Strausser, about how the team felt, the former offensive line coach, how the team felt about Slowick. And again, that's what I'm hearing. Like I don't know that for sure. There's some gossips who talk a lot about what goes on behind the scenes with the Houston Texans. And all I can really do is just react to it. Lord J asks on TikTok, how much do you attribute hubris to the current situation from the owner to the GM, head coach, and quarterback? I don't know. How can you have hubris after the way that last season finished, you know? Maybe with Nick Caserio, assuming the Patriots way is going to work in other organizations, working in this organization, maybe that's hubris, maybe that's arrogance. But I just have a hard time believing that they are proud of the way last year ended. And I know that they made it to the second round of the playoffs, and it was a close game, which DeMeco Ryans talked about again yesterday. Oh, I'm so tired of hearing that things are close. Yeah, I don't think it's arrogance. I don't think it's hubris. Lord J continues saying, seems like they still did. They just assume they're really good. I don't know. I don't know if I'm quite there, man. Ghost asks to bring Mike Meltzer on. I've asked before. He has said no. But not like that. But he has said no. It would be nice to have Meltzer on again. Josh Beard to have him on again as well would be nice. I have to be a little more proactive with booking guests, and I also have to figure out a time that's going to work for me because I am realizing that in the short term, I might have to dial things back a little bit so that I can actually find a means of employment. So this might turn into a couple of times a week show instead of a daily show. I do have to get sponsors for the podcast as well and weigh some other opportunities that are outside the game. I've been getting interesting offers that I'm surprised by to try things that I've never fucking done. And I mean, if it makes more money than what I'm currently doing now, I have to at the very least explore it, you know? Mustang Boy says bring on Cody. Definitely on the table. Landry's on the table. Anyone you want in Houston sports media, it's certainly a possibility. I think that Cody and Landry are doing a great job covering this team, and I give them a lot of props for covering this team with the same fervor that they would if the team was good while they're bad. I listen to their podcast, SNL, just about every single episode. I do on 1.5 speed because I'm a psychopath, and I like to get through as many podcasts as I possibly can. They're asking the tough questions. You're also starting to see some of the other members of Houston media ask those tough questions. So let's dive into yesterday's Houston Texans press conference where we heard a couple of interesting things. We will get to the sports gambling in just a little bit, but I do want to talk about the press conference, and I also want to talk about where DeMeco Ryans' ceiling is as an NFL head coach. So yesterday there were a lot of comments made by DeMeco Ryans, by CJ Stroud about the 49ers. Personally, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about this game. If they come out of it with a win, great. I'm expecting a loss. I'm going to watch it. We're going to have a watch party to watch the game. But I mean, it's all about in-house right now. But this is DeMeco Ryans at yesterday's press conference, specifically talking about what he had learned while with the San Francisco 49ers from now San Francisco defensive coordinator, and he had been the defensive coordinator before DeMeco Ryans. Here's what he had to say about Robert Saleh. This is courtesy of the Houston Texans YouTube channel.
Coaching, but working with Robert, he truly showed me like what it takes to coach and the detail, the fine details, the small things that it takes as a coach, how you have to be deliberate in your preparation. Like, how are you saying things to players, not just relaying a lot of information to them, but how are you truly teaching it? How do you understand each guy in your room? How do you teach it different? Some guys may need more walkthrough, or some guys you can tell them one time. Some guys need to write it down. So Robert Saleh, he taught me all of that, of what it takes to be a good coach. And
it's interesting that DeMeco laid out all of those things specifically out, right? Because right now there's a clear messaging issue going on Kirby. I talked about it on yesterday's not live show. DeMeco had brought up how the plan on the kickoff against the Seahawks was to either kick the ball out of the back of the end zone or kick it out of bounds. Instead, he kicked Kaimi Fairbairn a returnable kick, and it ran off some clock. Landry made the very correct point that Nick Caley also ran off a stupid amount of clock with a stretch play that the Texans ran before they were able to score that touchdown. I think they just should have kicked onside, whatever. Between that and between telling Derek Stingley, based off of DeMeco's comments twice that he made in Tuesday's press conference, that he's got to play press, he's got to play tight with Jackson Smith and Jigba, that didn't happen either. So they're not listening there. And then DeMeco a little bit later in the press conference, and I did a short or a reel or a TikTok about this. You can check this out if you want to cross-reference. But DeMeco said that it's frustrating when the offensive line, you're telling them to do something, and then in the game they don't do it. So to hear DeMeco talking about Robert Saleh and everything that he's learned from Robert Saleh as far as communicating with players, you wonder how much he actually took away right now. More from DeMeco Ryans at yesterday's press conference. My guy, Will Kunkel, you might remember Will from his time on Fox 26. He's someone that has to come on the show at some point. He's come on mine before. Kunkel asked DeMeco Ryans about the pre-snap reads that CJ Stroud is making. It is always funny to see DeMeco at the press conference, by the way, with the tongue out while he's listening to a question. Here's Will asking DeMeco a question.
CJ's taken a lot more responsibility, or is given to him, at least at the line, to identify that pressure. How do you think he's doing pre-snap and identifying pressures and audibles and stuff?
Yeah, it's not from a matter of identifying what we're doing with the pressure. I think we're identifying it well. It's just how are we executing after the ball is snapped. That's the main thing. I
hate it when coaches answer questions like that, where they point at a specific part of the question, say, no, you don't know what you're talking about by answering it that way, and then don't actually answer the question. I say that because I've dealt with this before. Let's go back in time. Since I was just on Sports Radio 610 yesterday, let's go back to where I used to be from time to time while dealing with Texans head coach Bill O'Brien. Here you go, everybody.
It's a team sport, as you mentioned.
Yes, it is, Paul.
When Osweiler, though, unfortunately, if he has an inaccurate pass, that's going to mean a lot more than a lot of mistakes made by some of the other players. And he said afterwards, when I asked him about some of the interceptions, he said that he made the right read on the play to Hopkins, and it just didn't get there. And then the pass to Griffin obviously sailed a little bit.
What play to Hopkins? Well, hold on now. There's 160 plays in the game.
The one that
Ask
was
me
intercepted
exactly
on.
what play you're talking about?
The first interception of the game.
It was a play action pass where 3 blocks were missed up front. He was flush from the pocket, and he tried to make a play to Hopkins. Hopkins was on the sideline, and the guy made a nice play undercutting it. Look, in the end, could he have thrown it away? He could have thrown it away, but a lot of things had to go. A lot of things went wrong on that play. The interception wasn't a great thing. The other play you're talking about, that was to Fedorowicz, not Griffin.
That part's hilarious. And he kept on going after this. We'll continue to play the answer. When you're up in the 800 level at NRG Stadium, I'll be honest, all the white tight ends look the same. And this is back during a time where we did not have access to the film that you now do when it comes to NFL media. At least I wasn't available. It wasn't available to me, at least at that point. But O'Brien kept going, and that one specific point where I'm asking him, hey, what happened on the interceptions? He did answer on the first part of the question, but then he eventually started nitpicking about what I was saying when it comes to, which tight end was which. Again, they look the fucking same from the 800 level. All white tight ends do look the same. More from Bill O'Brien back in the day.
He threw an interception. He tried to hit a seam ball versus Tampa coverage to Fedorowicz, which I thought was the right read on the play. He just made a poor throw. That's one play out of 160 plays. Of course, we have to take care of the ball better. We can't turn it over. I mean, I'll go through every single play with you. I got them. You know what I mean? Any play you want to ask me about, I'll go through it. But I'll correct you when you're not right about asking about what play. He was going to Fedorowicz on that play, made a poor throw, made the right read, got to make a better throw. There's 159 other plays in the game that we could dissect. Again, it's all about 11 guys doing it as consistently as they can on the same page. It's all about correcting those things and understanding how close you are to getting it right. It's all about understanding that this league is a very tight league and that we all have to do a better job, starting with me, leading into the Green Bay game.
But on the accuracy front, and I understand what you're saying on those two plays.
We could be here all day. I enjoy your questions. I really do. I think that one of the keys to being a good quarterback is being accurate. And I think that we work on accuracy with all of our quarterbacks all the time. I think that's a key. I think Brock would be the first one to tell you. I think there's been very many times where he has been accurate, and there's been other times where he hasn't been as accurate as he needs to be. He's working very hard to be as accurate and improve his accuracy all the time, and we work hard on it with him.
So you did eventually talk about the accuracy side of things. And if you remember your Texans history from 9 years ago, Bill O'Brien and Brock Osweiler got into it at the very end of the season when Osweiler got benched, but then Tom Savage got hurt and they had to bring Osweiler back in. It was pretty fucking dramatic. But I remember this specific moment. One time I asked O'Brien the next season about quotes he had made that sort of implied that Rick Smith had all the control as far as roster, as far as personnel. And he brought up this moment right here as a moment in time where I didn't know what I was talking about. And I was pissed. I stormed out of the press conference room afterwards, and one of the Texans PR people came up to me and I said, "This isn't fucking Tuscaloosa," and I stormed out. And she called me while I was driving away and told me to calm down. And I was like, what the fuck? He threw me under the bus under a press conference about something I said a year ago when I was asking him about quotes that he had said literally the fucking day before. So then, to Bill's credit, he called me, and to that quote that you just heard from a year before, he actually did offer to go through watching football with me and offer me access that a lot of coaches hadn't. Is it because he wanted me to be favorable towards him? Probably. I can look back in hindsight and say that in retrospect. But sorry to make this all about Bill O'Brien for a moment in time, but fuck it. I was back on 610 yesterday and I'm feeling nostalgic. Bill O'Brien is not doing so hot at Boston College. I actually hope he does well there. I think that being back in Boston is good for him. It's good for his family. He's from there after all. They had a pretty good season last year. This year, not so great. They're 1-6, and he was asked this question, which I found eerily reminiscent yesterday.
You kept saying that you were close to breaking through. What do you think has changed since that point?
I don't know, Trevor. If I knew, I'd be able to fix it. I can't fix it. I don't know what it is. I'm going to keep trying. I'm not anybody that knows me knows I'm a fighter. I'm not a quitter. I've never quit anything in my life. So I'm going to keep fighting. I've got to do a better job of trying to figure it out. Watch the tape, put guys in different spots. We did that today. I thought some guys, we talked about Grayson already. I thought the O-line did a lot of good things today. A lot of youth on defense. They'll learn from it. But yeah, I've got to do a better job.
Got to do a better job. It's on me. We used to hear that from Bill a lot. A lot. And it's funny hearing him answer a question like that, like, hey, I don't really know. When the Texans started off 0-3 in 2018, I used to go to every single Houston Texans Monday press conference, and Landry Locker basically told me, you got to ask this question. You got to ask him why people should trust him going forward after this 0-3 start. So here is Bill O'Brien and his answer to that question that I asked.
Glimpses of what this team can be last year. We've seen glimpses of it this year, but it's an 0-3 start. Fans get restless. Why should they believe in you as the head coach of this team?
Well, look, I think we got to win. So we understand that. We understand, why fans would be upset with us. We get it. That's the game. The game is winning. We're not winning. I'm not going to stand up here and give you a speech. We just need to win. We need to find a way to win, and hopefully, they'll stick with us.
So that was Bill O'Brien back in the day. Anyway, I wanted to go back down memory lane because I was literally on memory lane yesterday, okay? Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to talk about how I used to be a big deal. You used to be Mel Clark? Yeah, kid, I used to be. More from DeMeco Ryans at yesterday's press conference. Greg Bailey asked DeMeco Ryans a pretty tough question. Shout out to the TV guys when they ask the tough questions, because I know that's not typically their job. But here is Channel 13's Greg Bailey talking with DeMeco.
You mentioned that you're seeing things in games that you're not practicing. And do you understand why that's happening and how to get this fixed?
Yeah, I'm figuring out why things are happening. It's always baffling as a coach when you go through and you practice a certain thing and you work it a certain way, and guys get in the game and do something completely different. Well, that's being disjointed. Like, we got to be on the same page, and not on the same page like we don't know what we're doing. We just got to do what we called. We got to run what we call, right? The techniques we work, the things we established throughout training camp, we got to do that, right? And when we do that, you'll see we operate efficiently. We are able to be in the right spot defensively, special teams-wise. We're able to get our blocks done the right way when we just execute what we practice all week.
Spin zone for DeMeco Ryans, spin zone for the Texans going forward. If you want to find a way to have confidence in them going forward, you hear DeMeco Ryans say that, and you could argue, hey, in practice it's looking good. They're just forgetting what they're doing in practice during the game. Maybe at some point they stop forgetting, but it does make you wonder, if you're glass half empty like I'm at right now, what is it that DeMeco's telling these guys that they can't process? And then going to the Texans offense, which some believe is a Patriots offense. Maybe it's part Rams. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I don't know the playbook. But if in practice guys are able to figure things out and in the game they're not, whether it's because of what CJ Stroud's doing at the line of scrimmage, what the offensive line's doing at the line of scrimmage, this is all pre-snap that we're talking about, what the wide receivers see in coverage. Perhaps everything is just so damn complicated that in the middle of a game, those mistakes happen that weren't happening in practice, where it's a non-game situation, where there's no play clock, where things just aren't a game and can't be replicated like a game. But you're hearing DeMeco say, hey, I don't understand what's going on, where at practice, I'm telling them to do one thing and another thing entirely is happening out there. More from DeMeco Ryans at his press conference yesterday. I'm so tired of hearing specifically this regime talk about how close things are, but Luis Ortiz of Channel 11 got DeMeco to talk about being close once again.
All games in the NFL, or most of the games, are one-possession games, 8 points or less. And you look back at the history of it, since I've been here, we've been in, I think it's over like 25 of those games in the past 3 years. So it's truly one-possession games that we've been in. We're close a lot in games. Games are close. That's why the NFL is a fun league, because the games are close. Now you have to go back to what I said.
Oh my God. Football is football. Football is fun. Like, I can't do it. I mean, if these games are close, how is a game where you get 4 takeaways close? How is a game where your defense looks that great close? I don't care if the Seahawks are a good team. On paper, you should be a good team. Fuck close. What's the quote from The Rock about your best? Fuck your best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen. You know, I can't quite do a Sean Connery accent. Carla was the prom queen, says Nicolas Cage in response. Cool. Great moment in The Rock history. Nick Cage, generational run. Party guy, and on top of that did Con Air and Face Off and The Rock over a period of about 2 calendar years, all of which are hilarious rewatches because they are over the top and have a lot of action. With Nicolas Cage being allowed to be Nicolas Cage, which he was not allowed to be in National Treasure, which is why National Treasure, hot take, fucking sucks. They didn't let Nick Cage be Nick Cage. And
I don't like that kind of thing.
To be perfectly honest. One last question for DeMeco Ryans. This got the good question of the day from DeMeco. Kimmy Davis asked DeMeco a question about offensive linemen. Is it about technique or is it about talent?
DeMeco, how much of what happens up front, let's say on the line of scrimmage, one side is controlling the line of scrimmage, how much of that is technique versus talent?
Ooh, that's a great question, Kim. A ton of it, I believe, truly a ton of it up front has to do with technique, right? And of course you want to be the most talented group. You want to have the most talented guy possible. But I've seen guys of all who came in the offensive line from all different, whether it's undrafted all the way to first rounder. It's just about really, that group is really about the details and the communication and being tied together, playing together. That is the bulk of it, whoever steps out there. I've seen people win games with backup offensive linemen, seen them win with starter, but it doesn't change. You're working in a small space. You got to be on it. Things happen quickly. You got to be able to react.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay, if it's about technique over talent, then Cole Popovich isn't good at his job. Nick Caley isn't good at his job. Because we're now 6 games in. And the only progress we saw were games where talent is probably the reason that the Texans won. Titans suck. Ravens suck this season. They took away the ping pong tables at practice and were completely injured in that game. If it's about technique, if that's the answer DeMeco Ryans is giving, the coaching staff on the offensive side of things is bad. Some comments before we get to CJ Stroud, what he had to say after the game. Or excuse me, not after the game. What he had to say at yesterday's press conference. Temple of Brutus says, call Jerry. Deal is the Texans can have their offense every other week. The Cowboys can have our defense alternate weeks. Make the call. Oh, that's an interesting proposition. Cowboys offense is fucking awesome right now. The Houston Texans defense is fucking awesome right now. Could the city of Houston, a la the handshake between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers in the movie Predator, Dylan, you son of a bitch, or AKA like the Crips and Bloods with their cute little bandanas, red and blue tied together. Could we get Houston and Dallas to put aside their differences? More differences from Houston towards Dallas than Dallas towards Houston. Dallas doesn't really give a shit about Houston. Could we put our differences aside and come together to combine one super team, a merger, and take the best of both worlds? Would be pretty fun to have an all-Texas football team play some of their games in Dallas, some of their games in Houston, and Jerry Jones is a part of this operation. Would be a lot more fun for me, that's for fucking sure. Who's a better GM, Jerry Jones, Nick Caserio? I'm sure some of you Texans fans are thinking that right now. Wait, really? Am I thinking that? Well, now you are. Seed planted. More comments here on YouTube and Paul Gallant on Twitch at Gallant Says. Kooglaze asks, hey, Paulie, why doesn't media ask tough questions all the time? Is it because they are scared or they can lose their job? You do have to have a bit of decorum when you're there. Credentials generally do not get pulled, but if you ask a question in a confrontational way, generally you're not going to get an answer. And for these people who are covering the team and who are there every single day, you do want to create a good relationship with the people that you are covering so that they actually give you something. If you're coming in there all the time and just asking antagonistic questions, you're going to get frozen out. And the idea that you're going to be able to break a story, going to be really hard to do. This isn't the most competitive sports media market. It's, in fact, one of the least competitive sports media markets compared to some of the big ones, Boston, New York. I don't know if that's because of just what this city is as far as interest in the NFL, what this city is as far as demographics, both from hey, how many people here care about the National Football League, whether it's because a team left town when they were in their tweens, or it's because a lot of people are from out of the country, or a lot of people are from out of town. This is a massive hub. It grows and it grows and it grows. Does everyone love the National Football League with how diverse, how international this city is, So how much demand is there for information about this specific NFL team that's also the newest team in the NFL and has never really had a whole lot of success? There's not as much demand. And the people that are covering the team, I'm not saying how they should, how they shouldn't do their jobs. I'm just saying you do not see big name NFL reporters here generally, because this is not, as far as relevance goes, the Cowboys, the Lakers, the Yankees, So there's not as much competition. Everyone, I think, wants to be friendly with the people that they are covering so that they get the best possible answers. Sometimes that can work against you, but you are there every single day. And if you are face-to-face with these people, you can't really be the kind of antagonistic asshole that someone like myself, especially now that I'm not really going into the locker room, can be, And it's one of the reasons why there's a lot of people in local media who look at pundits, talking heads like myself, and they think they're fucking idiots. And I mean, I kind of am. As I said that, a little bit of snot came out of my nose, for Christ's sake. Hang on, I got to blow my nose now. But that's why it is the way that it is. I used to ask tough questions, but I always frame them politely. I think sometimes fans want to hear someone like me ask a question in a confrontational manner, but what is that? Like, hey, you get to see this person that's not doing a good job be inconvenienced for 5 seconds? It's an interesting dynamic. Anyway, user 24196291395991 rolls right off the tongue, asks, when are you getting credentials? We'll see. I got to finish my onboarding process and paperworks that I'm signing at 6:10, but it's not like I'm about to start a show or anything like that, so it might take some time. I don't know if I'm going to be credentialed by either of the next 2 games, but we will see. What do we got? The girlfriend does not like my take about National Treasure. And doesn't like some of the other people's takes about National Treasure. Look, here's my issue with National Treasure. They make Nick Cage the straight man in that movie. Huh? Let Nick be Nick. One of the greatest actors we've ever seen. So much range, so much emotion, so much power. They didn't let Nick be Nick. I remember watching that movie and I'm like, oh, they're not letting Nick Cage cook. Like they didn't let Russell Wilson cook. And like some people thought they weren't letting CJ Stroud cook. More Houston Texans media availability. Here is CJ Stroud at yesterday's press conference. He was asked what it'll take for the Texans to get better.
Just practicing better, having hard conversations, being better by each individual, just doing our job and making sure, we're just all on the same page. I think the effort's there, but now just execution needs to pick up.
The effort's there. Goes back to that Sean Connery quote in The Rock. You're bashed. Losers try their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen. I don't do a very good Sean Connery. Do you hear that, and do you feel like this team understands what it's supposed to do? The effort's there. The execution isn't. Why isn't the execution there? Maybe they're trying a little bit too hard. maybe it's a little bit too difficult to remember. They're working so hard to remember everything in this supposedly very complicated offense that it's just tough to do. More from Texans quarterback CJ Stroud, who said that he's still feeling confident. All right, I'm not sure if I share that confidence.
You know, like Monday for me, of course, wasn't my best outing. I don't think I played well, but to me, like, it really starts with preparation. I thought I prepared as best as I could for that game, and sometimes you go out there and lay an egg, but my confidence is high as ever. I have the most confidence not only in my team but in myself. You know, and I'm just going to continue to show up every game. And, you know, I think as time goes on, you start clicking more and more and more. You know, you can see when we were playing against Tennessee and Baltimore and then had the bye, came out, we had a really good week of practice, but sometimes that just happens. And so I think the focus for me is to stay confident in my process and my preparation and myself, you know. So I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm going to continue to get better in areas I need to get better in. But yeah, there's things schematically as well, or footwork and different things like that I can always get better in as well.
Things schematically, and then he brings up things that are technique at the end. He hasn't taken outright shots at the offense, but a couple of clips that I pointed out on yesterday's show from DeMeco Ryans, from CJ Stroud, I think that they do point to CJ not being thrilled with this offensive scheme. When he answered that question, by the way, too, he almost said, I prepared my ass off. And again, that goes back to, like, is this something that's involving so much prep before things actually get started that it's complicating what's actually happening, the execution? This is a question I ask myself from time to time when I get ready for one of these shows. These rundowns I have, they get longer and longer and longer. And I realize that if I'm actually simplifying things a little bit more, where it's just me looking at this and talking to you, that the show would probably be better. Sometimes I actually get bogged down by all the notes that I have in my show. In case you didn't know that. Taking you behind the kimono. More from CJ Stroud. This is the last clip from the press conference. Sam Warren, a Syracuse guy, played football at Syracuse. Now he works at the Houston Chronicle. Asked CJ Stroud about the Texans' offensive game plan.
About how this offense kind of lives on death by a thousand cuts, being efficient on first and second down. When that doesn't work out, are there ways for this offense to succeed and kind of make up for that?
Yeah, we have to figure out, hopefully that's the game plan. I think for every team you ask them is do well on first, second down. And then that's where I think some of the playmaking abilities, you know, has to come out. And that's the thing in this offense is, like, every play just doing your job, even if it means gain of 2. You know, it's like that's what we're being asked to do.
He seems annoyed with, even if it means gaining 2, that's what we're being asked to do.
That's what we're asked of. So that's something I'm still getting used to.
Still getting used to. There's still shade being thrown at the offense.
But yeah, I think, you know, like when that time comes, we got to find answers. And that's where, you know, when the ball is getting out for 2 yards, that's when I trust Hutch or one of the guys on the outside to make somebody miss and get 8, you know. So that's the type of offense we're living in. I think it's a good thing, but
that's the kind of offense that we're living in. I think it's a good thing. A little clarification right there.
Yeah, those type of situations, you know, kind of test those rules. But the more you can stay on track is the better, you know, what we have when we play on Sundays.
So that's CJ Stroud at yesterday's press conference. Let's take some of your comments here. Gallant says at gmail.com is how you leave an email. You can also leave a voicemail, 281-836-3912, or send a text message to that very same number, 281-836-3912. Do you ever get, like, your phone just starts making random noises? You're not 100% sure why they're making noises, and it's for emails. My phone's always on silent. It's been distracting me over the course of this show. Let's read some of your comments. Hugh Betcha 436 says CJ should not get a big money contract from the Texans. He'd probably rather play elsewhere. That is an interesting dynamic that I know some of the Twitch have believed for quite some time. Hugh Batch also said insanity is repeating the same mistakes over and over and expecting a better outcome. I actually think insanity is different. I think insanity is Nicolas Cage. That's what I think. And I think Nicolas Cage should be allowed to be insane in every single movie that he's in. It'll make the movie better. Like the time that in the Charlie Sheen documentary, you might have seen this, where he grabbed the phone on a plane, you know, the one that flight attendants use, and said that the plane's going down. And then he got arrested afterwards. And somehow Charlie Sheen, who apparently had coke on him, did not get implicated. But he admitted to that. Big DQ says, remember, CJ's still young, so don't give up on him. Well, it's one thing to give up on him. It's another to have confidence in him. I don't have confidence in him right now. I don't have confidence in him picking up this offense. And, I mean, do we want to move to another Texans offense? Because I know a lot of people have been looking for that. 1021 Keyblaw says, Stroud seems disinterested. Well, I'm sure that at the podium, he's definitely disinterested. Because dealing with people like us asking you all these questions while the team fucking sucks, like, how would you feel about that? You got to go up to the podium and answer questions. And, I mean, either you don't want to deal with the questions, or what I think is probably going on with all these guys, I want to get back to work. I have to do this, but I want to do everything I possibly can to get back on track. And here's 10, 15 minutes that are kind of inconvenient to me, where I don't know what I'm getting out of it. I only know that local media is getting out of it and getting something out of it, and that maybe fans are getting something out of it. But honestly, probably like just a lack of confidence. More comments here. B. Hannon asks, is it cold outside or is that just drip? Yeah, I don't understand the beanies with Stroud, given that it's October. I will say this. It is a little bit cold in the basement of NRG Stadium. I would usually bring a jacket or a sweater when I was working there for a couple of hours. So it could be that. HTX Rhino says, I feel like National Treasure was the first of the Nick Cage ain't turning down a role or a paycheck era. No, I mean, the movie is widely appreciated. It was a fun premise. There's a lot more movies where things got really bad. And this reminds me, I used to watch College Humor all the time. And I'm just going to show you this. Nick Cage Agent. It's a funny skit from back in the day. I'll show a couple of clips from it. But it's brilliant. collegehumor.com.
All right, listen to me. You're Nicolas Cage. No one can ever take that away from you. But after The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Bangkok Dangerous, Knowing, Ghostwriter, Next, Wicker Man, you need to be a little bit more selective about your films, Nicky.
Selective, Gary?
All right, for example, this just came in today. I've got it right here. You'd be playing a prisoner who asks if he can leave, and the warden says yes.
And then I leave?
Yeah, that's it. Not a very interesting story. So this is the kind of picture you shouldn't be doing.
I'm in.
What'd you say?
I said I'm in.
I'm gonna let that one slide, Nick, but your reputation is at stake. You have to be a little bit more discerning.
I like being in movies, Gary.
I know that you do, but you have to say no to some of them. Like this new one where the hero is a Nazi who can only speak in adverbs.
Let's do it.
Wait, no, Nick, come on. Now I want you to think hard about this, okay? You'd be playing Superman.
I love it.
Let me finish. Superman's cat. You'd be playing Superman's cat.
I love it, Gary.
And everyone on this bus is vomiting, except for your character, who has diarrhea.
Count me in.
A raunchy teen sex comedy shot entirely from the waist down.
Absolutely.
This one is literally a documentary about dandruff, directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, perfect.
An astronaut gets lost in space and his body implodes, except for his ass, which maintains consciousness and must find its way back to the ship.
Brilliant.
Oscar Schindler is not an action hero.
He is now.
People do not want to see an all-white remake of The Color Purple.
Sucks for them.
In a world where one man's dick hole is a black hole, we...
Yep.
Jack-o'-lantern comes to life, makes itself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and becomes inanimate again.
Hell yeah!
A lawyer wakes up with his ass where his dick used to be. Cheech Marin has the voice of your ass from the writer of Space Ass.
No!
Great, Nick. We'll pass on this. We'll get you something better with
Sorry, my dog was eating my shoelace. Whatever you just said, I'm in.
It's the...
So, anyway, you get the point. There's another minute of that. One of my favorites. One quick Texan segment. I know. Paul, the Texans suck! Get on with it! But I did want to ask what DeMeco Ryans' ceiling is. It's a question that I asked 11 months ago. A lot of people got mad at me for asking that question. It's too early, Paul! It's too early! Well, listen, motherfuckers. It's never too early for anything in this little game that we call the Sports Takeosphere. Is that a game? I don't know. Whatever. Work with me here. It's never too early to ask a question. Oh, it's too early. Shut the fuck up. People did that when I said, is it too early to admit that Patrick Mahomes is better than Deshaun Watson? Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, is it? Was it? Fuck you. Anyway, hey, everybody. What is DeMeco Ryans' ceiling as a head coach? What's his ceiling? And who has a higher ceiling than him? I think it's unfair at this point to compare DeMeco Ryans to the best coaches in the National Football League. So we're not going to put Mike Tomlin, who's won a Super Bowl, in the same conversation as him. We're not going to put John Harbaugh in the same conversation as him. He's won a Super Bowl. We will also take Sean Payton in Denver out. He's won a Super Bowl. Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers out. He won a national championship and almost won a Super Bowl. Andy Reid, who's won multiple Super Bowls, been to more. Or I guess we'll exclude Nick Sirianni because he has won a Super Bowl. Matt LaFleur because of how consistent the Packers have been. We'll take Dan Campbell out of... Actually, do we take Dan Campbell out of this one? Yeah, we'll take Dan Campbell out of this conversation as well. And Kyle Shanahan, who the Texans play on Sunday, out. And Sean McVay, who the Texans already played this year, out. What's DeMeco Ryans' ceiling? And we are going to use our friend Commodus from the movie Gladiator to determine if DeMeco Ryans has a higher ceiling than Mike Vrabel, head coach of the New England Patriots. Commodus, what say you? I agree, thumbs down. I agree, Commodus. His piercing gaze as he hopes for someone to be executed in the gladiatorial arena. Thumbs down. It's partly because Mike Vrabel has stumbled into a great quarterback. It's also partly because the Patriots this year have an all-time easy schedule. But he's getting a lot out of a team that last season stunk. Now, DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, their first year together, were doing similar things to what Drake May in his second year and Mike Vrabel in, what's this as far as his time as head coach? This is his sixth total season as a head coach in the NFL. It's definitely a little bit different, but they're in the AFC East. Bills seem to be trending down. Jets and Dolphins are bad. Can you not see Mike Vrabel winning a Super Bowl with the New England Patriots? And now that Drake May seems to have established himself as a starter, I'm a little bit biased on that front, but I'm seeing it. Higher ceiling as a head coach. Sean McDermott, head coach of the Buffalo Bills, or DeMeco Ryans. Does DeMeco Ryans have a higher ceiling than that of Sean McDermott? Commodus, what say you? I will actually give him a higher ceiling than that of Sean McDermott. Even though Sean McDermott with the Bills has gone to an AFC championship game. Part of this is because I think that the Bills are more about what Josh Allen does. Oh, wow. A quarterback decides an organization's fate. CJ Stroud, can he do the same thing as Josh Allen doing the couple of seasons before this one? But the other part of it is Sean McDermott just strikes me as kind of full of shit, and he's always looking for historical references to motivate the troops, obscure references as part of larger conversations. I can't think of anyone who operates that way. Nope, can't think of anyone who operates that way. Anyway, hey, I'll give him a higher ceiling than that of Sean McDermott. How about Zach Taylor? Because Zach Taylor and the Bengals, they got to a Super Bowl. Right? But, like, everyone seems to hate Zach Taylor, and they always start the season super slow. Does DeMeco Ryans have a higher ceiling than the Bengals head coach? Commodus, what say you? Look at that! DeMeco's 2-1. As we talk about ceilings compared to other NFL coaches that are probably about at the same level as him. No one likes Zach Taylor. Sorry, Zach. More. Ceiling off. Does DeMeco Ryans have a higher ceiling than two-time Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski? Let's take a look at Commodus. I mean, Stefanski's won Coach of the Year twice while head coach of the shit show Cleveland Browns. With so many bad quarterback situations. Imagine if Stefanski ever had a good quarterback. Let's continue to talk about higher ceilings as head coaches. DeMeco right now, 2-2. Lower ceiling than Vrabel, Stefanski. Higher ceiling than Sean McDermott, Zach Taylor. All of these are head coaches I think are in the same weight class as DeMeco Ryans. Up next, we've got Dan Quinn, noted Super Bowl choker who, with the Commanders to this point this season, seems to be reenacting the 2024 Houston Texans as far as disappointment goes. Does DeMeco have a higher ceiling than Dan Quinn? Commodus, take it away, buddy boy. What do you say? Yeah, I'm going to go thumbs up. I think that DeMeco Ryans has a higher ceiling than that of Dan Quinn. 28-3. You never get over that. Ever. I could win a Super Bowl. I'd still think DeMeco has a higher ceiling than Dan Quinn. Another head coach who has a higher ceiling going forward. DeMeco Ryans or Dan Quinn. Let's ask our magic, not Dan Quinn, or Brian Daboll. Let's ask our friend Commodus about who has the higher ceiling. Is it DeMeco Ryans over Brian Daboll, head coach of the New York Giants? Yes, he does. Ironically, Brian Daboll is under fire for the exact same shit that DeMeco Ryans is under fire for this week. Because the Giants gave up 33 points in the fourth quarter, but they're not looking to move on from their defensive coordinator. And DeMeco Ryans, when asked about his offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, said they're not moving on from his offensive coordinator. Brian Daboll also, when asked about his defensive coordinator and the defense allowing 33 points in a quarter, said, it's on me. Guess who else said it's on me this week? When asked about the struggles of his offense and his offensive coordinator. DeMeco Ryans. They're very similar, but at the very least, we know that DeMeco Ryans is fantastic when it comes to defense. Brian Daboll's worked with Tom Brady. Brian Daboll's worked at Alabama. And Brian Daboll's worked with Josh Allen. Like, he's been in the right place at the right time a lot. Maybe he is a good offensive mind, but I think that DeMeco Ryans has a higher ceiling than him. So look at this. He's 4-2. Higher ceiling. Todd Bowles or DeMeco Ryans. Does DeMeco have a higher ceiling than Todd Bowles, head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Give it to me, Commodus. Not like that, though. Yes. Give me that thumb. Thumb up. I say that because Todd Bowles has a losing record all time as a coach. He's up there in age, and I mean, what the Bucs have done to this point this season is incredible. But like Baker Mayfield finally came back down to earth, and they're dealing with Mike Evans out for the year. Bowles has done a pretty good job taking over post Tom Brady, and I do think that the Bucs are proof that no NFL team has an excuse. At the same time, when it comes to Todd Bowles, can you really say that he has a higher ceiling than DeMeco Ryans, who might get a second go-round as a head coach if things don't work out for him with the Texans right now? So, look, DeMeco's got a higher ceiling than a lot of guys at that like mid-tier, just not a Mike Vrabel and not a Kevin Stefanski. Higher ceiling. Raheem Morris with the Atlanta Falcons in his second go-round, or DeMeco Ryans. Does DeMeco have a higher ceiling than Raheem Morris? Let's do it. And that's a thumbs up. Indeed he does. I can't believe they hired Raheem Morris. They've been up and down, so at the very least, you wonder with the Falcons, like, hey, what could this team be? But while they probably made the right decision hiring Raheem Morris instead of Bill Belichick in Atlanta, given what a disaster Belichick's been with the North Carolina, yeah, I'd rather have DeMeco than this guy. One last one. Higher ceiling as an NFL coach. Does DeMeco Ryans have a higher ceiling than Mike McDonald? Michael McDonald, head coach in Seattle. Higher ceiling than DeMeco Ryans. Paul, you're not making any sense, and the way that you phrase this segment is leading to you being tongue-twisted all the time. That's a good point, Paul. Does DeMeco Ryans have a higher ceiling than Seahawks head coach Mike McDaniel? Give it to me, Commodus. Ow, 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 ow. Thumbs down. Just zoom in. Keep on zooming. So there you go. I'm not sure how close DeMeco Ryans is to reaching his ceiling as an NFL head coach. There are clearly some limitations that he is facing in Houston where things are set up pretty well for him, given they have a great defense and they have a quarterback with, I think, a lot of potential, but with a ceiling that might be getting lower and lower to the ground by the week. But there's a lot of coaches in the same tier as him that I'd rather have him than. I'm talking about Sean McDermott. I'm talking about Zach Taylor. I'm talking about Brian Daboll. I'm talking about Todd Bowles. I'm talking about Raheem Morris. Talking about all of those guys. Dan Quinn, too. I would rather have Vrabel, Stefanski, and Mike McDonald than him, but it's not like he's a bad coach. They're doing some things well. It's just hard to look away from what a car crash this fucking offense has been. Some comments here. 1021 Keyblaw says that DeMeco's ceiling is getting lower and lower. I'm agreeing with you by the week with everything that he says. This is a funny question. Omar asks, does DeMeco have a higher ceiling than Paul Gallant's radio career? Yeah, definitely. He's an NFL coach. I'm in radio, and I'm 36. I mean, I hope that I have some sort of Gallantissance, but I'm having a tough time seeing it. But I do thank all you Paul-Listinians for supporting me. I really do appreciate that. What other comments do we have? Because I was talking about coaches that are in one, past their first season, and two, I don't think are going to be fired. I do think they're going to keep Brian Daboll for at least another season in New York. Ghostly Ranger asks, does DeMeco Ryans have as high of a ceiling as Paul Gallant's high school safety career? I mean, I played safety for a defense that went up against teams that never threw the ball. I actually don't know how good in coverage I was in high school. I think I actually got a lot better in coverage playing flag football and playing tackle football every Saturday at Syracuse University with guys on the rugby team. I think I actually got better, but I got stronger. I worked out more, blah, 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 blah. But no, I didn't have a very high ceiling as it. I was very good for my size, for my frame. I had heart, all that shit. But I did not put in the work off the field that I needed to, which is why I did not play at the next level. I used to think, like, going back in time, I was like, yeah, if I really put the work in, I could have played at the second level. And I don't know, maybe, but I never did. Never did. I was just very fortunate to be at a school where I could get on the field. I was pretty damn fast, but, I mean, the fastest 40 time I ever ran, at least timed, was when I was 25, and it was a 4.84, I think. Did I run faster before that? I don't know. Anyway. Paul, why are you talking about your high school football? Talk about the fucking gambling, you asshole. All right, fine. This gambling scandal in sports is wild. In case you are living under a rock, today, FBI Director Kash Patel announced charges in a massive sports betting and rigging investigation that involves NBA figures, coaches, and players. This scheme exploited confidential information, including details about when athletes would not play. The investigation, per Patel, detailed a probe into an illegal gambling rig with ties to the mafia? Oh! Well, if it has ties to the mafia, maybe we should play a little music to set the mood, huh? Let's do that. The scandal is connected to load management potentially through the use of confidential injury and rest information. Jonte Porter pled guilty in a previous case not related to the charges today for deliberately leaving games early, claiming illness and injury so that others could profit from betting on him to underperform. As part of this operation, over 30 people have been arrested, including Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier. Kash Patel had a really wild quote that, quite frankly, pisses me off when asked about, I'm not sure, I couldn't hear the question here, but if you've been paying attention to the news outside of sports for the last, I don't know, couple of years or so, this comment should drive you crazy.
It's not popular to go after some of the defendants that we went after today, but justice is served blindly. And how do we countermand that? Simple. The unsealing of these indictments today shows the force of the Department of Justice and our great Attorney General and the leadership that we have at the FBI and the team here to specifically mete out justice. And look, let's not, mince words. This is the insider trading saga for the NBA. That's what this is. That's why we are going to take heat. But as the evidence comes out, as the indictments are unsealed, you will see the extensive work these men and women put in, countless hours over years, and that's how we countermand it.
Excuse me, who gives a shit about the heat that you're going to be under for investigating the National Basketball Association? Hello? There's another investigation that you guys have been pussyfooting around that makes everyone think that the Federal Bureau of Investigation is bullshit. You all know what I'm talking about. What the fuck are we doing here, Kosh? This is certainly an interesting story. I'm looking forward to more from Pablo Torre finds out because he's done such a great job investigating this in the past. But we're investigating this bullshit. It's sports gambling. Who gives a shit? They brought up the mafia as part of the investigation. Cool. I mean, that's a cool headline to make it seem like the FBI is really doing a great job. I forgot the mafia existed. But the mafia is involved, and the National Basketball Association is involved, and you've got millionaire athletes involved. No one's above the law. Oh, wait a second, except for everybody on that list. Huh. I mean, for fuck's sake, Kosh. The FBI's always been bullshit. I grew up in Massachusetts. Whitey Bulger was an informant for the FBI. He had an inside guy in the FBI. This guy who was a criminal, a gangster, a murderer while he was up in that area. And he basically was able to operate with help from the FBI, who fucks up shit routinely and yet has a TV show that glorifies them on, what is it, Channel 11 on CBS. The FBI is investigating basketball gambling when we all want them to investigate something else. And here's Kosh up at the microphone flexing and saying, we understand that it's controversial, that we're going to take some flack for who we're going after. Yes, because you're not going after the right people. You think people are going to support Chauncey Billups? You think people are going to support Terry Rozier? Or Jonte Porter? What are we fucking doing? Absolutely wild. Some of the other guys who have been investigated as part of this, you got a Coug in the mix. Damon Jones. You've got the mafia involved. Which mafias, Paul, you might be asking? Shout out to Adam Wexler over on the Astros and Rockets flagship for putting this out there. Because one, I mean, he works with the NBA. He's sometimes on the Rockets Space City Home Network broadcast, and he also is on the radio for the Rockets from time to time. Look at this from Wex. He's listing mafias by name. Let's get the ambiance back.
La Casa Nostra, Bonanno, Gambino, Lucchese, the crime families. They all might be involved with the National Basketball Association. Mafia knows a thing or two about load management. A lot of load management. Because you gotta eat a lot of pasta, you gotta have a lot of meatballs. But you gotta have some fiber so that your load will end up not damaging your intestines too much. What's the mafia involved here?
I am curious how deep the rabbit hole goes and how it affects sports gambling. I saw my guy Adam Spillane put it out that maybe this is a moment in time where all sports reflect on whether or not they should allow prop bets, because prop bets do seem to be the biggest problem here when it comes to insider sports gambling. How many more people get investigated as a result of his investigation? 30 plus people just were charged. And from what I understand, the FBI has like a 90% success rate when they charge someone. But does this lead to more charges? LeBron James, per The Athletic, was reportedly the player Damon Jones used inside information about before a February 2023 Bucks-Lakers game. Jones told others to bet on Milwaukee after learning LeBron would sit out with ankle soreness before it was on the injury report. Interesting. Very interesting. The coverage of this is also going to be very interesting, just given the ties that are now between sports gambling entities, casinos, online sports books, and sports media networks. I'm not much of a sports gambler. In fact, I just don't gamble on sports, period, unless you're talking about fantasy football, survivor pools, and picks leagues. But I'm not checking the books every single weekend to make game watching have a little more stakes. I'm not doing that. Because Vegas knows what they're doing, and they usually set incredibly good lines where the house will continue to win. But these houses are now deep inside all of the major networks and in just about every single podcast out there. From what I understand today on the Speak for Your Pizza shows, they were still talking about the Lakers and they were still talking about the Cowboys and all the big topics, Aaron Rodgers, as opposed to talking about the FBI charging 30 plus people with charges related to insider sports gambling. They arrested the head coach of the Blazers. That's fucking crazy. They arrested Terry Rozier. They arrested current players in the league, not just former players. But some of these networks took their sweet time to talking about it. And to what I was talking about a little bit ago, the conflict of interest between some of these entities that cover sports and the sports gambling entities that pay their bills. It's going to make things very interesting over the next couple of days. How many people actually do deep dives into this? Will we see posts about this on Barstool, on ESPN, on any of the websites? Here's a clip from ESPN today. I'm sure I will get copyright struck for this. Pay attention to the bottom right as they talk about Rozier and Billups being arrested by the FBI.
It was something that leagues stayed far away from. It was something that networks like ESPN would stay far away from. Those days are obviously long behind us. You hear a lot about legal sports gambling on this show. The Bussin' Boys, obviously sports gambling is a huge part of what you do, so we put those all out there as a preamble because it might be in the back of people's minds, and we acknowledge that this is a different time.
What just happened? You guys notice the bottom line? Ari, I'm not playing with you right now. I'm not playing with you. My cat wants to play with me. My cat just picked up a bag that has Keurig cleaner in it and just threw it on the floor in front of me. Wants to play fetch. Bringing it back to, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, this. Did you notice the bottom line disappear? I will play this in mute one more time. Notice in the bottom line, it says ESPN Bet Sportsbook. New players bet $10, get $100. And as Mike Greenberg is talking about how we used to not cover stuff like this, just keep watching. And it's gone. Completely gone. Because they realized how ridiculous it looks. So I am really curious about how this gets covered going forward. I really want to know. Anyway. We'll get you. I was trying to say something there. I don't know what the fuck I was trying to say right there. We'll keep you posted if anything else goes down on this sports gambling front. But that is going to wrap up today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast. If you ever have a thought that you want me to address, gallantsays@gmail.com is how you do it. Or you can leave a text message, 281-836-3912. Again, 281-836-3912. Or voicemail at 281-836-3912. We will address what you have to say. Shout out to Ricky Malahy, who commented on Spotify. Shout out to Ricky, because he, I believe, is the guy who termed the idea of Palestinian. I don't know how we feel about that. I find it amusing. I certainly find it amusing. I like it. But anyway, I appreciate you so much for tuning into today's live show. If you did, you can join me around noon weekdays live On YouTube at Paul Gallant, like this video and subscribe. On Twitch at Gallant Says, give me a follow, but a sub would be very much appreciated. On X and Twitter at Gallant Says Pod. Instagram at Sports Gallant. TikTok at Gallant Says. Like this video if you're watching along. 1,000 likes. Appreciate that. On the TikTok side of things. And on Facebook too, at Paul Gallant Sports. It's available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts. So if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the Gallant Says podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. If you leave a comment, I will read it as part of our comment section at the very end. Until tomorrow, around noon Central Time, so long, farewell. Nope, wrong song. That's Clay Walker.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain.
And have yourself